good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the last panel of the day, where we will also be discussing the cybersecurity challenges of IRIS2, but also how to address them. As said previously, the IRIS2 program aims at providing European users with an independent, reliable, and effective high-speed satellite communications. It should strengthen Europe's capabilities to acquire secure and reliable global connectivity solutions. And as seen in the previous panel, this program will have to tackle quite the cybersecurity challenges, which we are going to talk about with our panel of experts. I am pleased to introduce Alain Yvon, Head of Cybersecurity Laboratory for Space Programs at Thales SIX, Etienne Gérain, Founder and Cybersecurity Expert at Priamos, Yacine Felk, COO and co-founder of CYSEC, Walter Ballheimer, CEO of Reflex Aerospace, and Bertrand Leconte, Ground Segment Security Expert at Airbus Defense and Space. Welcome to you all, and thank you for being with us today. Before we start our Q&A session, what I suggest is to take a couple of minutes each to introduce your companies, but also some cybersecurity achievements that you did recently. Starting maybe with you.
Does it work? It works. Okay, so my name is Alain Yvon. I'm head of cyber laboratory dedicated for space program at Thales Group. Thales Group, as probably you know, represents a global technology leader that provides solutions, service, products for space and security market to carry out critical missions. And specifically today for this event, so I'm representing Thales Space and Thales SIX. And we support companies, organizations like ESA, USPA, and governments to provide satellites, payloads, equipment, systems, services, and infrastructure for telecom, navigation, and Earth observation as examples. So to sum up, Thales Space and Thales SIX have different experiences in system architecture, in security system architecture, accreditation of these systems, as well as their maintenance in operating conditions and maintenance and security conditions.
Thank you very much. Yes, Etienne?
Thank you. So, hello everybody, my name is Etienne Gérain. I am security expert and the founder of Priamos, which is an advisory firm, independent in France. So I am cybersecurity expert since 25 years now, and space cybersecurity expert since 15 years. The average of experience of cybersecurity in Priamos is around 10 years. So it is also a good opportunity for us to perform some advices and audit on the whole ecosystem of European space field, including agencies, industry, operators, and all other suppliers.
Thank you very much, Yacine.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Yacine Felk, co-founder and CEO of CYSEC. Thank you to be here. We are very proud to organize the third edition of CYSAT today and tomorrow. I would like to emphasize that our team has been really working on cybersecurity solutions for space and new space applications since a little bit of 4.5 years, and in a few weeks it will be our 5th anniversary. So thank you to be here again, and I'm really happy to participate to this panel on IRIS2.
Hi, I'm Walter. I'm CEO and founder of Reflex Aerospace, and obviously the new space guy here on this panel, right? And yeah, with Reflex, which was started only 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, we managed to participate in one of these IRIS2 related new space studies. We led it and came to some conclusions. As a consequence, we also started a joint venture with some more established players like SES called UNIO. UNIO is our satellite operator joint venture with the mentioned companies, right? And cybersecurity has been always part of the discussions in this context, right? And I'm not the cybersecurity expert, but however, I did my best to prepare for this panel. Let's see, right? Thanks.
We are eager to hear your insights. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bertrand Leconte from Airbus Defense and Space. So Airbus, it's a very big group. We are doing civilian aircraft, we are doing helicopters, military civilian ones. The Airbus Defense and Space part is doing military aircraft, fighters or refueling aircraft. We are doing communication system, and we are also doing space parts, space systems, with Earth observation systems, telecom systems, navigation systems. And for all those products inside Airbus, security is a main concern for us. And we know that our customers are expecting the adequate level of security for our product.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. Before we start, I'd like to see if we can get more mics. If anyone can get us more mics. Okay, that's fine. No, I'm sorry, we'll have to share, but it's fine. Now, on to the questions. As we all know, any other space asset, like IRIS2, will be subject to threats on the space, link, ground, user, and supply segments. My first question will be focused on one specific threat around the supply chain. And do you think that in Europe, the conditions are met to ensure that all systems and subsystems of IRIS2 will be fulfilling cybersecurity requirements? Who would like to start?
Oh, I can start. What we can say today, currently, we are in a bid offer process. It corresponds to the first stage. I mean, this is the pre-selection of industries, pre-selection of consortium. So the details of the different cybersecurity requirements right now are not known. However, we can make some comparison with similar European satellite program, for example, like Galileo for the navigation. So what we can say? Firstly, the design of IRIS2 system and interfaces shall be secure according to cybersecurity requirements. So this is a point. Another point will be that we will follow, I will say, a risk approach methodology to develop this design. Okay, so this is important. The second point, I will say, is the IRIS2 system and interface shall be accredited according to accreditation requirement. And the third point corresponds that the system shall be compliant with sovereignty requirement. So this is a link with your question about supply chain. So my suggestions are some assumptions right now. So we can say ESA or USPA, for example, can establish a list of sensitive items to procure. This will help us as industries to focus on the most sensitive ones. For example, the security module for the satellites shall be manufactured in Europe. So we can have something made in Europe. So to answer, this is my first answer, we will see the other one. So I think in Europe, we have the capacity, we have the capability to provide a certain percentage of European system or subsystem with a mark made in Europe, so we can fulfill cyber requirement.
That's reassuring. Yes,
I just wanted to add from the perspective of a relatively small new space company that yes, potentially everything is there. However, it will always be a balance act between meeting the schedule, fulfilling the security requirements, right? Fulfilling the 30% SME quota, right, which is also there, and remaining within the budget, okay? Yep. So many of the SMEs, at least the ones I know, are certainly, at least for now, not prepared to meet the requirements, right? Cybersecurity is certainly a topic which is discussed often on panels like that, but very rarely it's like really implemented already to a level for an SME or a startup to participate in a program like that. So this will take time. It's feasible, but it will take time. The question is, can really the quota be met while the schedule will be met as well? That's my perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes.
Yes, maybe I can add also another answer to complete. So I work since 15 years around in space field, and what I found is really a new structure which has been built by European Commission with the support of GSA, ex-Eurospace, with the board built initially on Galileo, but also now used on EGNOS and Copernicus, so which is an excellent framework to gather all environment coming from the industry, but also to address also new space activities in the future. Then it is supported initially, built by European Space Agency, and we found also now a number of industries, for example Thales and Airbus here, which has been become really mature on cybersecurity since a while now, and by integrating frameworks required by European Commission. Now there is still a huge job to become fully mature, even if in the previous discussion with Isa said that the ecosystem is mature now and ready to build IRIS2. This is almost the case. We need to continue to work on and to improve this maturity on at least on the ecosystem of industry, the suppliers of industries, the suppliers of operators, and also by integrating new space. There are a new way to build the systems. There are an excellent solution, but sometimes which does not, the framework built by European Commission is not fully applied, and so we need to become more mature on new space activities also.
Yes, so I understand that with Europe's baggage, with all the knowledge, it's definitely at least some kind of mature to go forward, but we still need to do some work, more work to go a little bit further. I think it's a little bit of what you said as well. Yes, Bertrand?
I would say that at industrial level, at big industrial level, we are quite prepared for this kind of activity, and we are doing, at least for Airbus, but Thales is also doing this kind of same projects. We are already doing projects with a high level of security. For smaller companies, it will be harder. We know it, and we are prepared to accompany those companies for them to be able to fulfill the requirements of such program.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
And it's mandatory at the end.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah, I definitely want to build on that. As small players, let's say that we know that the prime are already known, let's say, that we understand who will bid for what, but IRIS2 also the challenge is to involve all the new space players, and most of all the let's say the promising startups that can provide different pieces, whether we talk about security or even functionalities, building something operational, and so on and so forth. So this is I think all the ingredients are there in terms of value chain. Then it's about integrating the players.
Yes, and maybe this is also where frameworks or regulations may come from. And I have a question about it a little bit later, for sure. Maybe now can you remind us of what the main differences and challenges are between securing the space assets versus the ground assets, including the terminals?
I can start for this. The first real difference is that once the satellite is launched, well, we assume that there will be no physical connection to any of the onboard systems. So this can lead to some, I would say, easier way to protect, but also has some consequences. For example, for the maintenance, we cannot assume that we will be able to replace a part of the satellite, physical part of the satellite, once it's absent. So this is the first real difference. The second one is that usually on the ground systems we are talking about plain IT systems with general IT threats that we can see in every domain. When we are speaking about technologies that are inside the satellites, we are maybe a little more conservative on what we are installing on board, and this may lower a little the entry points on the vulnerabilities that are there. This is to be understood as, I would say, generalities about technologies, and we know that we still have to work on the security on board, because it's currently not totally always in all mind, because of the first point, it's far from the Earth when it's flying. So some people are saying that there is no threat, but there are.
Yeah, I see. Anyone else would like to add?
For Thales, so we have identified, I will say, 3 challenges. The first one will be to consider the capacity or the capabilities of the LEO constellation satellite. Because the LEO constellation will be different from a MEO, medium Earth orbit, or geostationary constellation. So I say we will not have the same level of performance in terms of memory or in terms of processing. So this is the first challenge that we have to cover. The second challenge, I think, will be to take into account, according to the previous discussion, so the different payloads. So they deal with about hard gov services, light gov services, and commercial services. So it will be very, very important or mandatory to be able to I will say, to separate or to segregate logically or physically these kind of services. And these services, I will say, will depend also about on their telecommands and telemetries. Okay, so for each services we will have specific telecommand and telemetries. So it will be very, very important to implement an appropriate, I will say, segregation, an efficient segregation to implement. And the last one, the last challenge will be, I think, the cryptographic protection of the TC, of the TM, the protection of the mission. So I mean the communications. So the security module on board, so on the satellite, or the security module on ground, should support cryptographic algorithm in terms of confidentiality, integrity, authenticity. So this is the challenges to, I will say, to pay attention and to have in mind.
Yes, thank you. And on the specific architecture, we can talk about it a little bit later as well, actually. Yes, anyone would like to add anything about the satellite versus ground?
Okay, so building on what has been discussed previously, I think that really from the design, let's say, before having the infrastructure in space, it's a real challenge to have it really designed securely, which means that you have to take into account the new threat vectors that we have seen in the past years, to imagine other scenarios of attacks, and to take into account, let's say, the different challenges related to that. So this is my point.
Yeah, it's just form of prevention at the end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Would you like to add?
That's good. Everything is said.
Perfect. My next question, which you already talked a little bit about, Alain, is with regards to the final design of the IRIS2 constellation, which is not set yet, of course. As said, there will be a government and a commercial infrastructure, what you mentioned as hard versus light gov. And they may either correspond to fully separated satellites or maybe part of a shared infrastructure. My question is about your recommendations on the design, shared or not, and what challenges would be linked to either one or the other.
So I don't know if somebody has said that today already, but in general, I think it's a very bad idea, right? To share governmental and commercial infrastructure, because it will either make the governmental infrastructure less secure, which we don't want, or the commercial infrastructure less competitive. Okay, and the whole concept of IRIS2 foresees that the commercial infrastructure will be sustainable, commercially, economically sustainable in some kind of way over time. right? And if we superimpose the requirements which for sure are needed for the governmental infrastructure on the commercial part of it, be it related to the space segment, if we have like hosted payloads on there which share the data links, or be it with respect to the ground segment, where we need to like then put two different control facilities for commercial, for governmental, separate them and so on. If we do all that, we get a super complicated, non-competitive system, and there will be absolutely no, and like after reading all these documents, I haven't found any actually incentive for a purely commercial service provider to be interested in the commercial part of this whole story. So my point is that let's be honest and simply admit that IRIS2 is a governmental project, right? Let's not like cheat on the taxpayer saying that it will have some commercial self-sustaining part. It will not, right? And it will be more expensive than currently anticipated, and it will take longer. Let's be at least as honest as that, right? A part of that, it's a good project, I support it, right?
That's very interesting, but I should stress that at the end of the day, what they tell us is there will be two components to the constellation, but I totally understand your point of view.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes. Your point of view is very interesting because I have another approach. In fact, I work on Galileo as a ground station security manager, ground segment, and I was not alone, of course, plenty of security engineers were working on this project, and we were able to combine in the same infrastructure, a global infrastructure, of course, government services and commercial services. However, it is true that it is very complex to manage because we need to first segregate the network, but also segregate data, adding specific cryptographic facilities, both for non-classified and different levels of classification, and also by building some premises which might be different. So I think it is feasible because we did it. I think it is very expensive. Maybe we can find other solutions which might be efficient also. Maybe the risk related to governmental activities might be decreased if we split, formally, physically split everything. But I think it is still feasible, and we need to continue to think about it by gathering also costs and by limiting costs. Even in any case, even if it is fully segregated physically and different infrastructure, what it can be very interesting is to continue to work on the center which is responsible to monitor the security, and this center can be shared between different programs. The first center was called GSMC on Galileo. Massimo were talking about SecMon, which is also another way to monitor the security on Galileo. And then there are other activities, or other facilities which are planned, such as the same facilities for EGNOS. But all of these centers can be shared to monitor security on all programs, which can be at least a good idea.
Yes, and I guess the proposed infrastructure, at least for now, is based on what was already done at some point. Any other point of views?
I would say for the sharing versus non-sharing debate, it's always on the table. It's not necessarily binary. We can share some part and not share others. And in the end, one of the real challenge will be the accreditation. Will we get the accreditation if we are sharing too much? It's a real challenge.
Definitely. Yes.
But I will say for Thales perspective, I think we can capitalize on previous experiences on European programs. So as you say, so I think in Europe we have different actors. So we have people doing the design. So people are familiar working with ESA, with USPA. We are also actors for the implementation of the satellite. So we have the knowledge, we have the know-how, okay, and we have also the operators. For example, the operator for the security monitoring or operators for the satellite system. So we have experience on this. So I think this experience can be capitalized and reused for the IRIS2. We can say also that we have some familiarities with the process of the development. So we know how we have to develop a satellite with ESA, with USPA, or with every European authorities in Europe. And also for following the idea from my colleague from Airbus, concerning the accreditation, we are also familiar with the security accreditation board, for example, located in Prague. So we know the process. We know for which milestone, what are the processes to run, and what are the deliverables to do. So I think this mechanics, if I can say that, or this methodology can be reduced, and I think it will be easier to reuse something that to create from scratch.
Yes, definitely. Yacine, maybe you have anything to add on shared or not shared, even if it's not necessarily binary.
So
as
basically,
mentioned.
basically I think it's shared that we have a lot of knowledge based on that for the development, but also the operation. But then the complexity comes when you put multiple stakeholders in terms of interoperability. And this is what we can see, but at the end it's about maintaining services for civilian purposes or sovereign ones that will be maintained and pursued over time, and that can serve different use cases, so it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll get back to the stakeholders idea for sure. Thank you very much for your insights. Now let's talk about directives. Obviously, there are space and cybersecurity directives today on the global and European levels. What are your views on the way that they will shape and influence the security requirements of IRIS2?
We don't know the requirements yet, so it's very hard to discuss about this. From a regulation point of view, there is some that are already there.
Yes.
There is some that are coming soon. Of course, IRIS2 program will have to rely on those and to build upon those regulations, and will probably have also to improve some of them, to propose evolutions, and this will be for the benefits of the overall European space community.
Yes, maybe a piggyback question if you want to answer differently. With the regulations, we have standardization. So my question would be more, what do you think about the standardizing the cyber approach for all European assets, for example?
So I think it's a must, because basically you have so many different approaches building space-based system that at the point you need homogeneity in terms of cryptographic protocols also that are used to protect, for example, TMTC. This is what we see with the CCSDS, SDLS type of protocols. But also when we talk about if we put ourselves 3 years ahead or 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, talking about quantum, also you have a lot of things happening on post-quantum algorithms where libraries can be also embedded into different systems. And we need really to get a standardization about what are the security practices for onboard computing systems, for all the satellite to ground communications, and also to protect the ground segment.
I see, yes.
I potentially would go even further, saying not only European but NATO-wide, because like in context of interoperability, in context of the directives also issued in the US, which like last panel or the panel before the SDP5 was mentioned, right? This is all things which will be adopted on the other side of the Atlantic, and we will also have to comply to some certain extent with that. to be interoperable, right? So it needs a more global, at least NATO-wide approach to standardization, not only European, right?
Yes, I see. Yes, you wanted to add something?
Maybe we can complement. I agree with you, colleagues. So cybersecurity is a dynamic field. So I think we have to follow the state of the art and follow recommendations coming from our member states or administrations. I will say nominally for European space program, normally or nominally I will say the authority write what we call a security accreditation strategy and write security requirement, okay? And all these requirements, all this strategy, this is the main input of the program, and afterwards, these requirements are flow-downed to the different segments. So for the space segment, for the ground segment, for the user segment. Okay, so this is, I will say, the first pillar of the security and of the cyber security. So for example, for accreditation, what we are expecting, I will say, as an industry, is to have this accreditation strategy describing the different processes, describing the different actors involved in the accreditation, the milestones, and of course the deliverables. Okay, so if we have to deliver something at the kickoff, if we have to deliver something, I don't know, at the preliminary design review, critical design review, etc., etc. For security requirements, so I think we can imagine some requirements, okay? Because we will develop a new LEO constellation. So I mean protection against unauthorized access, okay? So I think it will be something mandatory. Physical protection measures to reduce the vulnerability, okay? So I think normally in the future we will receive this kind of requirement. Protection against communication interceptions, communication jamming, spoofing. I think if we are dealing with governmental services, so it will be mandatory to have this. Protection, of course, of ground assets, space assets, protection of user assets concerning, for example, the user terminals, the antennas. So the protection is required. Concerning I will say, the training of the people who will be involved, okay, in this project. So hygiene practice concerning the cybersecurity is something important. Concerning the first question, if I make a relationship with the first question, the supply chain risk. Okay, so we have to, I will say, to track every manufactured product. We have to ensure what is the source of the product, okay, coming or participating to the solution. At the end, I will say, maybe my list is not complete, but this is some assumption. For the security requirements, the cryptographic algorithm, okay, so some cryptographic algorithm will be approved by the program. So I mean by the Europe. So this is a list, I will say, of security requirements and a list for accreditation.
Yes, I see. So it's a must, as you said, Yacine. It's the starting block in security, and the direction should be robust. Anything you'd like to add, Etienne? All good. Now maybe let's move on to another question on the different stakeholders, which you already talked about a little bit before. The government infrastructures and its interfaces will be subject to security accreditation, as we said. So the Security Accreditation Board that was discussed later, a little bit earlier today. What are your views on how the security of IRIS2 would be shared between the different stakeholders, between the providers of the different elements of the system, the operator of SAT constellation, the future GovSat Home Hub constellation, and so on? Who is responsible for what in terms of security? Anyone would like to share their views?
I think it's a very wide question.
It is.
First of all, each party will be responsible for its security.
Yeah.
But it's not enough.
Yeah.
Security of interfaces, high end-to-end security, will also add a layer of requirement of constraints and will lead to new issues. And in the end, I truly believe that the only ones that will be able to have the global view on this will be the Security Accreditation Board. So first, we have all to make sure that the Security Accreditation Board gets the information they need to be able to validate and to accredit the overall system. Behind this, there will be probably an industrial consortium. The industrial consortium will have to look at end-to-end security from its point of view. And behind this, this consortium will have to not delegate, but disseminate the security objectives among all the participants to the consortium on all the supply chain. And it will be part of the duty of this industrial consortium to ensure that everything is done correctly at every level and all the integration is done correctly. So in the descending V, every requirement are correctly sent to the correct entity, and on the up V that they are currently implemented and currently correctly integrated.
Maybe just adding on that, like the more interfaces, the more kind of a nightmare the whole story is, right? This is just stating the obvious. Okay, so inside this consortium core team, there must be a player who focuses on a holistic view on the overall system, on cybersecurity, right? It cannot be just distributed and managed by the consortium prime in some kind of way. It must be a dedicated player, specialized and well-renowned for its expertise, focusing on this specific topic for the whole system, right? And this is the only way to go.
That's an interesting take and suggestion for sure. Anything you would like to add on the matter?
Let's say let's get back to the mission of IRIS2. It means that it will provide, it will leverage the existing programs, just like the SATCOM ones, and providing services related to data. So when you look at this, let's say from our perspective, we see it, and also from the presentation that have been done today, as a space being an extension of the cloud. So you can see it as being able to deploy your application and maintain your services for, let's say, civil servant and the population through an extension of the infrastructure to space asset. And build on that, I think that having the same scheme of responsibilities all toward the consortia that will build and implement the IRIS2 infrastructure makes sense, basically.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I see. Nothing to add so far? Perfect, thank you. Now let's move on to quantum technology. Of course, we have to talk about it. What opportunities or threats would they trigger, and what role would they play in the security of IRIS2? So
let's say from our perspective, the quantum technology, let's say IRIS2 builds on EuroQCI, which aims at building a quantum-safe infrastructure for the European space, which is definitely providing synergies with the already existing technologies. And then there is, let's say, a short-term adoption to long-term one that may be made. When we talk about, for example, quantum-safe and post-quantum algorithm that can be implemented so far quite straightforward because they are standardized and then they can be tested in terms of performance, in terms of operational behavior and so on and so forth. And on the other side, there is at a later stage, let's say, the adoption of more exotic type of technologies that requires, let's say, different flavors of technologies. Yeah. For example, if we think about QKDs with the different options that may exist, this poses a kind of risk I would say, not a threat, but let's say a risk if we want to get it operational for the next, let's say, 25 to 30 years.
Okay. Anyone would like to comment on the quantum technology?
Maybe I can try. No, but quantum technology, yes, you're right. So this technology, so we will use for the key distribution, okay, of keys between the satellite, the space segment, and the ground segment. So quantum technology, we can say, will enable unequable communication. Okay, so this is something new because the conventional cryptography with asymmetric cryptography are I will say breakable according to the needs of other organizations. So I will say the implementation of the QKD, of the quantum key distribution, so will allow to provide, I will say, proven secrecy of the encryption keys, and also they permit to allow to reach a long-term confidentiality and integrity. And also another opportunity, if I can say that, is the properties of light, the properties of quantum. Okay, so when there is a flow with data, and if a data is intercepted, so we have the capacity to know it immediately. Okay, so this is something new concerning other, I will say, other technology. Another point is if the data is intercepted and altered or modified, so we have the possibility to know that something is wrong on the system. So this is, I will say, something new brought with the quantum technology.
Maybe just to add on top that's beautiful technology for sure, but it will remain a niche also, and because just for technical reasons you will not see like people receiving quantum keys while driving through the desert with a Jeep, right? So there will be the majority of the communication by IRIS² will be traditional communication, right? Not secured by quantum keys, but like certainly for embassy to embassy communication or stuff like that, that's beautiful, but this will not account for the majority of the data transmitted through the system, right?
Okay, I see. Anything to add maybe with regards to risks or threats? Because for sure, there should be threats also we can try to avoid in advance, or there's nothing specific about this for now? I see, that's fine. I actually want to go back to the nature of the constellation and ask a side question, because as we all know as well, is that the constellation is multi-orbit. And my question is more on the technicality here, is that are there more challenges because of this design, or not necessarily? It's the same as if it was in one orbit. What are your views on this?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I just...
No, I think it's really challenging to have a kind of multimodal, let's say, type of use for the constellation. Most of all, because when you think about a service, again, or let's say use case scenario, where you have, for example, a boat going from geocommunication to LEO 1 and then ending because it supports maybe thousands of different goods, providing IoT connectivity. This is where it makes really sense to have this multimodal kind of connectivity where security is really key also.
Yeah, yes, I see. Thank you. Maybe before we move on to some final questions, we can have a look at questions in the audience. If there are any on the app, maybe we can show them. No questions from the audience. That's interesting. Maybe someone here would like to say something, to ask something? Yeah, we're covering everything. Sorry? I still have a question. But...
Okay. So if you have no question, I can also initiate the conclusion.
I
no?
still have a question.
You still have a question?
Yes, if I may, then we can do it for sure.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to my last question at least. The security requirements are obviously going to be a key driver for the design and the operation of IRIS². Can you tell us at which level these requirements would impact the total price of the constellation?
I can answer. Excellent. Partially. What I found regularly is we have the lower level of suppliers which have to apply a number of security requirements which are very important. I mean, they, for instance, last year I was discussing with a software development company, a software which is used in a constellation, but this is a small company, 10 people working around the world. But they have to apply a number of security requirements which generate the estimation is several hundred of thousand euros. But the software has to be developed just by using a budget of 40,000 euros. Okay, so it is absolutely not realistic to apply such a security requirement at this level. So this is a real matter of real discussion, an open point today. How we embed all suppliers, also the suppliers which might have a very an extreme high adding values, but they don't have any budget to implement security. So this is a real difficulty to address now, because we need, in any case, to secure also the whole infrastructures at the lowest level.
Yes, and for sure there must be a budget for the security.
Yeah.
It cannot be just overridden.
But what we also see is that through already now this like first phase of the tendering, we have the facility clearance, personal clearance requirements, and so on, which needs to be fulfilled, which leads to a reduction of potentially cost-effective and like more new space players in the total pool of the participants, right? And as a consequence, we will see a more classical solution in the end. I'm not saying it will be bad or insecure or slow. I'm just saying it will be more classical and more like tailored to like resilience and traditional approaches rather than what we would see from a purely new space dominated consortium. And as a consequence, the costs, of course, will be as expected, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the cost for SMEs and startup will be high because there is an entry cost for them to spend on this kind of topic. And regarding to the overall business they can forecast, it may be not possible for them to pay for it. But on a more general point of view, I would say the overall cost of security in a system can be from 15% to 35%, depending on the requirements that you can that you get from your customer and for the regulation on the whatever requirement you get. So it's something that is very costly first, and then it depends heavily on the requirements that we got. We don't have yet them, so we don't know. But it will be not on the lower end of the fork. It will be probably on the higher end.
And are there ways to lower it or not at all? This is how it's supposed to be if you want a very secure system.
We will try, of course, as an industrial to propose the best solution for our customer at the best price. I would say this is business as usual. The more the requirements are high from a security point of view, the more they are expensive, and the more the demonstration of the security will cost. So it's I would say a double penalty.
Yeah,
cost more and demonstration cost more.
Of course, yes. Yes. Anything to add on the cost? Security impact, yeah. Perfect. Everyone is aligned. Perfect. Maybe before I let you give your remark, there is a question from the audience. Will European government, agencies, or citizens based outside of European mainland be able to access the IRIS2 services? I don't know if you have the answer to this one.
I guess it's one of the requirements that at least in Africa the services are provided, and as a consequence, simply because of orbital mechanics, they will be provided everywhere else as well, I would.
That's true, indeed.
The mission foresees, as you say, so a worldwide coverage, including Europe, of course, Africa, Arctic region, and the global coverage is aimed around 2027, according to our understanding of the requirement and discussion with European Commission.
Yes, that's what they said, indeed. Etienne, you wanted to add something before closing?
Yes, I just want to come back to one point because a few months ago, I just want to rephrase someone who said, someone is the Russian Foreign Ministry of the department. He said, quasi-civilian infrastructure may become legitimate target. It means that even if we segregate, fully segregate the military infrastructure and civil infrastructure, in fact, what does it mean, quasi? Quasi is nothing. So it means that even if a foreign state can attack commercial services. So this is really important to keep it in mind. And so I just would like to say 3 words by explaining them. Anticipation, we need to anticipate, and this has been discussed already in the previous discussion with the European Commission and ESA. In fact, there is a real lack of experts, so we need to anticipate this situation. We need to continue to train, but also there is difficulties with technologies, with cryptography, as you said. I'm not an expert on crypto, so I didn't want to discuss about it, but this is a real issue today. The second word is maturity. We discussed also already on this point, but I want just to say something else. The maturity in the building teams. We have already, in fact, we discussed also about the 4S program previously, Space System for Safety and Security. What happened now, is since a while now, is there are space experts which are not mature in security. And we have a lot of cybersecurity experts which are not mature in space. So we need to become more mature also to discuss together and to ensure that we are sharing the same vision. And this is also a matter of convergence. I think it is tomorrow there will be a discussion with Space CYSAC. We really need to share all our point of view, all our knowledge, all our know-how, and we need to build a European standard to be sure that we are facing all together with against such attack or such threats.
Thank you very much. I see we have another question from the audience. Is new space and high security requirements really compatible?
Yes. No, but honestly, what is new space? New space is an approach to how you realize, how you implement projects, right? It's not about bad hardware or bad software. It's simply the way you approach a project. Like another culture of implementing it, faster cycles, quicker demonstrations, another failure culture for sure as well. And but in the end, if done right, the ultimate goal of reaching high security is totally feasible and achievable also with a new space approach, right?
Of course, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I will build on that, saying that yes, definitely it's compatible, but most of all, it changes the way you perceive the risk. Yeah. Basically, because when you have a constellation of, let's say, thousands of satellites, then your risk appreciation is not like when you are building a full mission with 10,000s of millions, let's say 10 dozens of millions on the table to build it. So let's say that you can assume that you can
Why should someone do that?
Yeah. So that's the point, let's say. It's fully compatible, but then the risk appreciation is maybe balanced in another way.
Yes, that's actually an interesting point. Yep. We have a final question from the audience.
Thank you. So as I understood, IRIS2 is supposed to be launched in 2027. This is a short timing regarding to the usual length of the space program. So do you think it is a realistic planning, and how it is going to be met, in your opinion, by reusing some previous technology, or has someone already worked on design? I mean, for me, it looks quite short, so I wanted to have your opinion on it.
I don't know if anyone would like to answer. I'm not sure. Yeah.
What I can do.
What we have said before, we have I will say we can capitalize what we did on Galileo, for example. Okay, so we are familiar how to apply the cryptography algorithm and so on. So we have some mechanics, we have some processes. So this is something that we can maybe copy past, if I can say that, for the IRIS2. Okay, so I think you're right. This is a new constellation because this is LEO constellation. Okay, so we have to, I will say, to adapt what we are familiar with the GEO or with the MEO, and to adapt our processes, to adapt our technologies, or maybe to adapt our, I will say, our know-how on the LEO constellation. Okay, but we are not, I will say, starting from scratch. Okay, and you're right. 2027, it's a very, I will say, a challenging objective. Okay, but this program, as maybe explained before, it's an iterative, project. So I think there will be, I will say, several objectives before reaching the global objective. Huh?
I guess what it's saying is a rollout of initial services in 2027, which doesn't necessarily mean that you need to roll out the full LEO infrastructure until then. Potentially, depending on how this consortium will be, whom it will consist of, some existing infrastructure in MEO and GEO could be used with some tweaks and adaptations to provide some of these services already early on, right?
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for this thorough conversation. I suggest we end the session, and I invite everyone to thank the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you.